All right, so Maj Jones, thanks for joining us today. Maj Jones, let's see, Military Justice Chief at Travis, ADC at Travis, STC at Andrews, and now the Chief Regional Chief Senior Trial Counsel, Western Circuit. Is that right?
Something like that. Yes, sir.
We'll just call you the King of the West.
Yes, sir.
So,
Thank you.
you have a lot of litigation jobs, clearly, so it's something you obviously like to do. What it is about litigation that sort of drives you to continue to do that in your career?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, sir, I've been doing this for since 2010. So just sheer litigation. I love working with young counsel. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, the thing that drives me the most is actually showing up at a case, from getting the case from the ground floor, and starting to prep the case and see it all come together. I mean, that's the best part is planning the case, seeing it all come together, getting to see who the witnesses are, meeting those witnesses and seeing it from the ground floor and how it plays out in court. That's the best part of the whole thing.
Well, don't tell anybody I said this, but you're very good at it. I've seen you do it a couple times, so I know you're good at it. What is it that you think is sort of the key to your success of being a great litigator?
I think the way I'm able to work with people.
Okay.
I think when you get on a case, obviously, in many cases there's lots of witnesses, and it's meeting each of those witnesses one-on-one, and having those witnesses trust you, know what your role is, know that you're presenting the facts for whatever client you have, whether it's the United States government or your client if you're an ADC or an SDC, but it's getting to know each of those people so that when you get in court and you're asking them questions, directing them, crossing it, whatever, you have that initial interaction with them, and so I think it helps present the facts to the members if they can trust the person that's asking the questions. They have that prior knowledge, and they know, you know what, this guy has no stake in this. He's just asking me questions about the facts of the case, and I'm just going to respond and answer and tell the panel or the judge the truth.
So is that something you can learn, or is that something you got to be born with?
No, I think it is something you learn. I mean, you know, I've learned from lots of folks. You know, I'm on a case right now with one of my colleagues, and you know, I was a trial counsel back in the day, and you know, I saw him interact, and then I moved over to ADC, and he was a senior trial counsel at the time. And I saw his interactions with other people from the opposing side. And that's something that I wanted to be eventually, is from ADC, move to STC. And so you see how people carry themselves in court. And then when they're prepping with witnesses, you look at those that have more experience than you and see how they do things. And you can see how some things are good that they do, and some things you're like, yeah, I probably can learn the opposite way from them and learn that this is not something that how I want to portray myself in the future. So I think you definitely have to, there's something to be said for experience.
Yeah,
and just sitting there and listening.
Yeah, absolutely. So sort of along that point, don't let this go to your head either, but you've got a pretty good reputation for being a civil guy. And it can be tough in litigation when you're ADC going up against an SDC, or particularly ADCs and the colleagues they used to have in the legal office, maintaining that degree of civility in a litigation environment. So talk to the young JAGs out there about sort of how they deal with those issues.
Well, you have to think objectively, because honestly, that's why we have the law, right? There's two sides to every case. There's multiple angles. And you've got to understand the approach to take. I think the proper approach to take is you have to look at both sides and understand the other side. They have certain interests. They have a client, and you have a client, and so they're going to make an argument, and they're going to be passionate about their argument, and so are you. Shouldn't take offense to that. Now, yes, sometimes the opposing side crosses the line. Whatever your line is, that you think that that's the line, they've crossed it. Sometimes that happens. It's always good to take the high road, because it doesn't do anyone any good if you get down in the gutter with the opposing side. So I think sometimes when we are so passionate about the positions that we take, we tend to lose sight of like the big picture. and why we're making these arguments. So I think it's important to like take a step back sometimes and say, okay, this is why they're so fired up, and it's okay to be civil and objective and understand where they're coming from, and not necessarily just thinking all about where you're coming from.
Okay. So Major Jones doesn't walk on water, but I have seen him in court before, and I've seen you before court, and I really think one of your great skills that sort of sets you up for success in the courtroom is your ability to prepare a case in an aggressive way and in a complete way. So if you talk to folks about sort of your approach to getting the case ready for the courtroom itself.
That's right. Well, I mean, you have to have a preparation plan. You have to have each person's different. Some people, you know, when they prep a trial, you know, how you organize the trial. Some people use the trial box that you'll learn in JSOC. Some people use the binder, the folders. But at the end of the day, it's really talking to every witness, knowing what every witness is going to say, reading their statements prior to speaking with the witness, making sure the witnesses review their statements that they made. Sometimes we're trying these cases a year or two down the road. And so it's okay for them to review their statements and see what they told investigators originally, and make sure everything that they told the investigators when they originally talked to them is accurate. And so, because people have different motivations. And so it's prepping the case, it's all about having your own organizational style. Some cases are going to require more preparation than others. I will say, approach every case the same. You need to prepare, you know, do in-depth preparation for every single case, but some cases are going to require you have thousands of pages of discovery. You're going to have to do an Excel spreadsheet and have hyperlinks and bait stamp your documents. That's going to be required in some cases. Some cases you don't need that. Some cases it's, you know, you have a folder or a binder with all your evidence, and that's all you're going to have, 2 or 3 witnesses. So know what each case takes. But at the end of the day, early, often, make sure you provide discovery with our discovery policy that we have in the Air Force now. Abide by that discovery policy, but have your own style and know what's necessary in all of your cases.
Yeah, so we obviously worked the murder case together,
That's right.
and I was real impressed, obviously, with your preparation, but also the way that sort of you really took the team approach with the case paralegal to heart and worked the case paralegal to that preparation stage. And a lot of trial counsel I see, particularly young counsel out there, don't have a good sense of how they work with their case paralegal to get a case ready. Why don't you sort of give us your thoughts on how you can make that a team approach?
Well, I guess the biggest issue I see in every case, in almost every case, and where there's a breakdown, if there's a breakdown with the teaming and the JAGs and paralegals, it's because the paralegal doesn't feel like he or she has ownership in the case. Well, you know, the attorney will be like, hey, come sit through this interview. And they will have not read any statement. They will have not, I mean, looked at the case. They don't even know the facts and details of the case. We just pull a general law paralegal or a military justice paralegal and just bring them in and say, hey, you know, help us out in this case. Really, I think from the ground floor, we need to identify paralegals and let them, we want them to have just as much ownership in the case as the attorneys. And so that they can assist the attorneys. I mean, really, we're all in this together. We're all a team in the legal office. But at the end of the day, I can just stand up in court and make an argument because I have a law license, right? But the paralegals offer just as good of, I guess, opinions and their take on what the case is about, what the panel will view as important and not important. And I value that, I guess, that perspective, an enlisted perspective, maybe a perspective that I don't have as an officer. And so that's something that I don't think paralegals get enough ownership in the case. And I think attorneys need to do a better job in giving and letting the paralegals have that ownership. And not letting, but just them having ownership in the case so that they feel like they're assisting as well.
So let's talk a little bit about what you see young trial counsel doing or not doing in court that either helps or undermines their development. as litigators. So let's start sort of just with sort of general idea about what they can do better in court, and then we'll drill down in sort of various practice areas.
So that's a little broad, sir.
Potentially.
I guess when we're talking about interviewing, or when we're talking about directing witnesses, I think straight and to the point,
Okay.
cover all of the areas, split the directs up into sections. And so a lot of times you want it to flow chronologically. A witness will offer, is just being called to offer one specific event, one specific thing that they witnessed, remembered, whatever, or they're offering multiple. Split it up into segments, make it simple.
Okay.
You don't need short, simple questions for the witness, because honestly, that's what a court-martial panel needs. That's what a fact finder needs, is short sentences, short questions, and short answers. That's easy to direct, through the court.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sure, absolutely, great point. How about, let's just start from the start then. Let's talk about voir dire. What can folks do better in voir dire that you see?
Do a better job connecting with the panel.
Okay, goes back to the first point. Yeah.
I'm not a guy who singles out panel members. It works for some people, it don't for others.
Mhm.
And so figure out whether that works for you. If you're very conversational, that may work. If you're a type of person that can single someone out, but it doesn't make that person feel like they're being singled out, if you know what I mean,
Sure.
then that will work. Others, just ask group questions. And that's totally fine as well. But whatever you do, connect with the members. Obviously, have a reason you're asking a question. A lot of times we get a hold of voir dire, like a voir dire shell that we've been doing for 10 years, and that's the worst thing, is do it. This is how we've always done it, so we're doing it this way. No, have a reason you're asking the question. It needs to go to bias. And so, yes, they teach you to maybe try to spread your theme and theory throughout voir dire. Ask the questions that go to bias, but really what you're trying to do is connect to the members. And so that's the important thing with voir dire.
Okay, how about opening statement, not argument, opening statement?
That's right. We have to remember, I think, from my experience at this point, I think panels need you to, they just want to know what the case is about. And it needs to be very, very elementary. I mean, when you're getting a story for the first time, right? When you're telling a story, obviously you're telling them who the characters are, and you're giving them kind of what's going on, the background of what's going on. That's really what the panel needs to know. So when you, as the government, are about to call 20 witnesses, they're not completely confused when you call them the witnesses. That's the point of opening statement, is to kind of, hey, okay, I'm tracking this prosecutor. This is what he's about to show me. He's about to show me that why this guy's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And so, but he's going to present these witnesses to me, and this is what I'm expecting. So they know this is what to expect in this case. That's the key to opening statement, is, again, it's connecting with the panel, just like in voir dire, but more so letting them know what they're about to hear. Don't give them too many specifics, because the important point is, again, some of these cases we're trying to hear 2 years down the road. We're human beings. People forget things. And so make sure when you tell them something in opening statement, if you're a prosecutor or a defense attorney, defense counsel, if you tell them something in opening statement, you better be able to deliver it. And that your witness is going to be able to remember that they made that statement, or that we'll be able to offer that evidence. Don't promise something you can't deliver on. And so that's my big piece on an opening statement.
All right, we talked about direct. How about cross? That's always tough for young counsel. It's always tough for any counsel.
That's right.
To cross somebody. Give us some tips on that.
Well, in all, it's going to be, sometimes you're going to have a more complex cross-examination, especially if you're on the defense side and you're having to, cross-examine a victim. Or if you're a victim, alleged victim, if you're on the prosecution side, a lot of times, from the prosecutor's standpoint, a defense counsel will call a witness for very specific things. you merely want to, sometimes you don't need to cross-examine.
Right.
We want to cross every time. But yeah, I mean, that's our general nature. We're like, oh, we want to cross-examine someone. That's what we love to do. But at the end of the day, sometimes you don't need to cross-examine. Sometimes you say, hey, it's good to go. But if you do cross-examine, get to your point and get out. Don't continue on or ask one too many questions. You should prepare and know which questions you're going to ask, and know if you ask one too many questions, they may not give you that answer. Be safe with get out what you want to get out with that witness, and then sit down.
So this is not about me, probably should be about me. It's not about me, but I think there's an impression out there too, particularly for the young counsel and some senior trial counsels I've worked with before, that cross-examinations to be sort of monumental need to be really long. And I don't get the sense that that's a good way to approach a cross-examination.
It's not. I agree, sir. And again, as long as if you keep it short, it's all about being effective, right? And it's not effective if you just go on and on and on. I mean, obviously, witnesses are like attorneys. They've already pitted sides as well, and so sometimes they have, you know what they're going to say, and you're not going to convince them otherwise, and so you know the facts that are going to come out. Sometimes you got to take the hits or not, but you don't need to, because it'll have a counter effect sometimes if you're continuing to ask cross-examination questions and you dwell on, you have them repeat the facts that they just repeated in direct. That's not effective. And so, because it really gets their testimony out there twice. Right? So get to the point of what you want to get out of that witness, and you know what's going to be beneficial to your case, and then get out.
Great. How about closing argument?
That's the best. It's you. It's you. It's only you, and the members are focused on you, and you have to deliver and make sure to get your point across. But at the end of the day, you're presenting the facts from your perspective for your client. And closing argument, to me, I rarely give a long closing argument, if you will. Usually it's between 35 minutes, and I think the longest closing argument I've given is maybe an hour and 15, hour and 20. I've heard some counsel go on for 2 hours. But really, my closing arguments are basically the same almost every time. Grab attention from the start, lay out, I guess, some of the facts, but don't necessarily go into all of the facts. Go through the law, go through the elements, the law, and then tell them why this guy, as a prosecutor, why this guy's guilty. Some different perspectives. I mean, you can go through what each witness gives, and sometimes you want to use PowerPoint, sometimes you don't. I think over time, PowerPoint has been more effective. Is more effective. It can be effective, but sometimes if the members are looking at the screen and not looking at you, again, in court, it's that that persuasive, like looking members in the eyes, connecting with the members. That's what's going to, I guess, if they're on the fence, again, throughout the trial, people have made up their minds. Sometimes closing argument doesn't matter at all. We like to think as attorneys it matters more than it actually does. But I think some people are on the fence. And so to persuade someone one side or the other, I think it's that connection with you. That connection that when he says something, and again, and I will go back just a minute, if you will. I know I'm going on a little bit for this, but I think in building up to the closing argument, you have to show throughout the trial, you have to show the members in the way you act, in the way you, I guess, present yourself. You have to show the members that they can trust you. You have to give them a reason to trust you, and that goes back to being civil. If they see you at the prosecutor's table or the defense counsel's table, and they see during trial that you're being, that you are, being civil and kind of being respectful to the positions of the other side, and that you keep your council table neat and clean. You keep everything organized, and when you make a statement or asking a question in court, or you're addressing the judge, you're being respectful. When you do so, you're being respectful to defense counsel's witnesses as well as your own witnesses. But if they see all of that, when you stand up in front of the members to make a closing argument and say, believe me, essentially, believe me when I tell you this guy is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, when they go back to the deliberation room, they're going to tend to believe you over the opposing side.
Yeah, got it.
And so that's what's key to closing argument.
So I'm assuming the answer to this question is closing argument. Favorite part of trial then?
It would be closing.
Yeah. So we work, senior trial counsels work with a lot of young counsel. Senior defense counsel, same thing, a lot of young counsel. They're all anxious to do lots of parts of the case. What is it that convinces you, in a general way, that a young counsel is able to do a tough cross, or maybe even give them a closing now and again? What do they need to do to convince you?
I mean, obviously as an STC, I've been doing this now 4 years. So 3 years in STC, a year as the chief STC out of the West. The king. That's good. But I've given up closing. I mean, that's what I do, is closing argument, right? You roll in, and typically that's what counsel will do is you come in as the senior counsel, and typically you will do voir dire and closing argument almost every time. Now there are a handful of cases where whether it was more important for me to do sentencing argument, or I thought that counsel was the best to do that argument. Sometimes, believe it or not, I'm not the best to do the argument on the case.
Hard to believe.
But no, there are some cases where I see that a willingness from counsel and their preparation, those are willingness and preparation, and obviously they have to have the know-how and the desire to want to do it, that sort of thing. But if they have those two and want to work on it and are willing to come in and we do a murder board and say, yeah, let's do this, then absolutely. I think it's a good experience. However, on a lot of cases, in some of the cases that I try these days, is you want to put your best foot forward.
Sure.
And so, but the members also see that, I think the members also want to hear from all the counsel as well. They don't want to see just some counsel over there being a potted plant, that you're utilizing all your resources. And so,
Great. All right, fantastic. So let's spend a couple minutes getting to know Major Jones a little bit. So tell us about, I know you worked a couple murder cases, so those are obviously good cases, but is there a case in particular that sort of sticks in your mind for any particular reason? Your favorite or your most challenging?
That's a tough one.
All right, we'll edit that one out.
Let me think a minute and you can
Okay,
add
we'll go back. So let's do it easier then. Let's say one of your top couple bases you visited in your time as an STC.
Everyone would say Hickam. I love the bases in Colorado Springs.
I like that, yeah.
Outdoors, there's golf courses. I've played the Air Force Academy course a couple of times. And so that area, I love that area. Obviously, I've been stationed in California twice. I love Northern California. I have a house there now. But I would say the coasts. I like the water, and then obviously Colorado Springs.
So to make up for when I did your promotion, your favorite college football team?
Volunteers.
All right, fantastic. And then best place in the world if you could go anywhere, where would that be?
Greece.
Greece.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I want to go to Greece.
All right. Favorite book or movie?
Movie? Well, as area defense counsel, we watched A Few Good Men every time we had trial, and I still love it. I like Independence Day.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Get y'all fired up?
It does, every time.
Fantastic. All right, last question. Excluding your current boss, your favorite boss you've ever worked for?
Colonel Mark Miley.
Okay, let's try again. Besides,
Oh, I thought we were talking about you. You are my favorite, sir.
All right. Good answer.
If Colonel Milam was here, I might say it differently. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
All right, Major Jones, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate your time.